To be funny or not to be funny? That is not the question we're talking about today. It is not a choice. I'm interviewing the very, 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 very funny, no pressure, Scott Friedman today about humor in the speaking industry. Hello, and thank you, Mr. Funny Man, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the benefit of the doubt by calling me the funny man.
See?
I like to say I'm a motivational humorist, so you have a way out. See, if they laugh, it's humor. If they don't, it's motivation. So that way,
Motivation, don't be like that guy. That joke didn't work. Okay, so how did you choose the word? I copied you after I went on Together We Can Change the World. You and I don't know if it was Tim Gard that called themselves motivational humorists. I was like, okay, I'm going with that route. Seems like instead of like screaming, I'm really funny, like funny speaker. Did you take that from someone? Did you think of that yourself? Was that like a movement when you were starting out, or?
That's a great question. To be honest, I don't even remember. I do own motivationalhumorist.com.
You do? Wow.
So maybe I did. Maybe it was so many years ago. But there's such a difference between humorist and motivational humor. So Tim Gard could be a humorist because he's that funny. Me, I need a way out if they don't laugh. And that's where the motivational humorist comes in. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. Have you ever thought, I'm a little bit of a smart ass, right? I'm a therapist, so I like to push people a little bit. I thought sometimes comedians do the things like the unmotivating life coach or like the not transformational speaker, like just playing with that. Yeah. Has anyone ever done that, or what's that?
Yeah, like George Campbell used to have the Joe Malarkey, the worst motivational speaker was his handle. So yeah, like he would say things like, if it the best diet, if it tastes good, spit it out.
Okay.
Was one of his lines. Yeah. So yeah, that's good.
So we were at the GSS together, everyone, and some of you listening were with us in Bali. And what I noticed, and I went up to Scott afterwards, and I was like, what the heck is happening? A lot of people are not optimizing the power of humor. Like they're getting a couple laughs, but it's not like intentional and it's not coming naturally. And why are people not going like deep into humor when we know the power of it? So I thought I'd explore that a little bit with you. Is humor growing in professional speaking, or what do you see happening?
Well, it comes down to you look at what we're competing against with so much stimuli out there now with AI, and you have about 3 seconds, 5 seconds to capture your audience. So if you're not doing something engaging, if you're not creating an experience, biggest difference I see in professional speaking today is your programs should be a show. They should really involve the audience. It's got to be relevant for the audience. I mean, you can do so much more research in a shorter amount of time with ChatGPT and Perplexity AI today. That so you really should know your audience better, and that gives you more opportunities to use humor. So those that aren't are really missing a big opportunity. And maybe it starts with storytelling. I mean, you look at we mentioned Tim Gard a minute ago. I mean, with the big sweaty guy story. I mean, to become a great storyteller and play the play. We had in our mastermind group, we do this exercise called half the words exercise. So you take your story and you say, okay, great, that's a nice story. Now cut the words in half, because what we find is that stories are too long, and you give too many details. And if it really doesn't help develop the plot, or it's not a funny aside, then it probably doesn't need to be in there. So that's a good exercise to play. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I think the programs today are more of an experience. So whether that's humor, whether that's really good storytelling, whether it's audience interaction, whatever it is, you have to create that experience.
Yeah, I think you just said the three. And I'm like, if you're not using the three, where I know there's the debate in the NSA or some of the Facebook groups that I'm on. They're like, to be monologuing or to be audience interactive. And then people have their own opinions on that. And I'm like, engagement with the audience is a way to get them to listen. Like, how the hell, like, how good are you at storytelling that you don't have to involve the audience? Like, I have a lot to learn in that area. I'm not such a good storyteller. So I use humor and audience interaction. So people who don't use like any of them, I'm like, well, any of them. Well, there are some people that don't use storytelling or that. I think their careers are just limited.
I was going to say, are they still in business?
Yeah.
Maybe they think they are, but they're just not getting booked. Could that be it?
I saw a couple speakers at the GSS, and not saying that these guys are leading the industry, but some examples of like pretty standard ChatGPT content without very emotional stories, just mostly like fact stories. Sometimes I find like, sorry?
Did you stay?
No. Did I stay? It was too hot outside and it was too air conditioned outside of the room. So I probably did stay. Yeah. I just get a little bit confused because I just entered the industry and then I met you pretty much right away. And I sat beside you at the GSS in Ireland. And then you're like, come do this thing with me. And then I learned a lot from watching you and the way you act in the people. So I think you inspired me. You know, you played the bingo with the audience, you make the laughs, you do the funny images, you walk around with them, you do all these things that are correct. And I was like, so that's the way to do it. I'm going to build my career after how you do it. And then I see people doing like the complete opposite of like monologuing. And I'm like, how do they survive?
They probably don't for long, just a matter of time. Yeah. And then they're like, I should have watched this podcast months ago. Maybe I'd still have a career.
Is it a little bit like to send this to those speakers that I saw being like,
is that rude? Just don't mention any names.
Exactly. Yeah. So were you always a humorous little boy?
I was, I guess, kind of a little bit of a class clown and was in trouble a lot. So yeah, I couldn't sit still for a long period of time. But yeah.
So were your teachers like, you're not going to turn into anything? And you're like, actually, I'm going to turn into a motivational humorist. They didn't even know that existed as a career.
That's usually was my standard response. Was when yeah, you're not laughing now, but you will be laughing later.
Exactly. Nice. So you wrote a book, you studied humor, whether you started naturally as a humorous person, but you had to learn some tricks of the trade, or do you think you just had it in you? Is there any hope for the monologuers out there? Can you study it, make it work? Or
humor is definitely a learned skill. And the nice thing is you don't necessarily have to be funny. You just have to be able to access humor. And today it's easier than ever. So what I would recommend in your program, so you mentioned my program as being interactive or whatever. So I do certain things in my programs. Like I rip up a newspaper while I'm talking about what causes stress. So you learn about what their pain points are, what causes stress, and that becomes humor. Or you look for all the opportunities. So I used to I just saw Nigel come on. God, I haven't seen Nigel forever. Hey, buddy, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Funny guy.
And now I just lost my train of thought. We need to start over. Is that okay?
Nigel, he's so distracting.
No. So basically you build into your programs opportunities to use humor so that you don't necessarily have to be funny, or you can put audiences in exercises to tell funny stories or really get the audience to be funny by what you ask them to do. It's
get
funny.
The audience to be funny.
Or just I do humor workshops every once in a while, like a 3-hour program, and I have them come up with the most embarrassing moments. And so that's always just embarrassing moments are most of the time pretty funny. To have them engage in that exercise.
What you said is super valuable, and like I knew it, but when you said it, it's like get the audience to be funny. Because if you're there to create an experience for people, it's very different watching a YouTube video, which is a monologue essentially, or the audience being able to do something. So it's not even just audience participation, like raise your hand if this, which is the standard, right? You actually walk into the audience and you let them have their time to shine, which is above audience interaction. That's like making them stars with you. Do you see that happening a lot? Do you think that's like one of the keys to your success for your long career?
I mean, I think definitely the interaction is paramount. I mean, it's very important. You know, the old saying, it's more important to be the guide on the side instead of the sage on the stage. So you want to tap into the wisdom in the room,
Mm,
and you want to make the audience a star wherever you can, or
mm,
give them permission to
mm,
play. So that, I think
mm,
that's a big key to it. But
mm,
but again, I mean, I do a little bit of magic.
mhm.
That bingo game where everybody gets bingo at the same time.
Yeah,
That's fun.
yeah.
I start off my program by, what are we celebrating, and then I, give them a
Mhm.
permission. Say, okay, who's celebrating divorce? Finally, you're free after all this time. So
Yeah,
it just gives people permission
yeah.
then to really let loose and share what's on their minds.
Mm. And you, which is why you're so special, is you have the ability to hear them, right? It's like you are the speaker, but it's more like you have a facilitator role. Whereas if you're just speaking and it's about your story about climbing Mount Everest, right? It's like I've heard there's three types of speaking energies. It's like audience focused, content focused, or speaker focused, and everyone can choose their own. But for me, if we're competing with like Tinder on their mobiles, 10 seconds away from like their eyeballs and us, if we are not entertaining and not focused on them, why should they listen to us? It's like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, so the good point. So self-centered, it's, how am I doing? It's all about me. Content-centered is, I've got to share 347 ways to use AI, and I'm not done until all 347 ways are shared. Or audience-centered, where you're not there to control your audience, but you're asking the question, what do we have in common? So it's
Mm,
finding a way to create the experience
mm,
with the audience. So
mm,
the ones that are audience centered are always the ones that are going to have longevity in this industry.
mm. Wow. So when I watch Tim Gard, I've only seen him 4 times, but this big sweaty guy, he asks a little bit of questions, but almost all of it is like the story based because it's such a good story. So is that like the difference? If you have such an engaging story, you don't have to be so audience focused.
I think I mean, humor in itself is audience focused,
Okay.
because in order to tap into the funny bone of your audience, there's a connection there. So, and
Mhm,
that's really what we're trying to do, is we're trying to create that connection. So you are being audience focused. So that
mhm,
big sweaty guy story, the fact that it's on an airplane and you can kind of picture yourself
yeah,
on that airplane, and
mm,
so Tim does a nice job of painting a picture where you can kind of see you
mm,
sitting next to the big sweaty guy. So
mhm.
he is audience centered in that story. So,
Gotcha. Okay, since Nigel's listening, Nigel has got this reputation for humor, very bold humor that includes the audience and talks to them in the audience. And I think it takes a lot of balls to dare to improvise because you can't control an audience. You can't control 50 to 1,000 people. I can't even control my boyfriend putting down the freaking toilet seat in the middle of the night when luckily I don't fall through because of proportions, but you can't control these people. All you can do is like invite to play with them and dance with them, and that requires improvisational skills and confidence in yourself that you can deal with someone who might shout out something rude or racist or terrible. uh, isn't it such a brave thing to talk to them?
uh, you just have to trust. Lou Heckler said that you should only have 75% of what your planned time for your talks. In other words, leave 25% to play or 25% for ideas at the moment, because
Huh.
no matter how good your program is, there's gonna be opportunities, or there's gonna be thoughts that come from the audience that is gonna remind you of, oh yeah, that story would be perfect here. Or I have a, or there's, and that gives you that permission to play. So if you have so much material, then you don't have the opportunity to play. So you need to create space for that.
Hmm. You know, I knew these things intrinsically because when I go on stage and I don't do these things, people stop listening to me. So, but to hear you tell me that the legends in this industry have known these things and said all these things, I guess I haven't read the books, right? So to have like scholarly backing of these things makes me go like, oh, I'm just a normal human. And what I was feeling was statistically, if, with experience wise, actually true. You know, we're just humans in the audience. You don't, it's not really brain surgery. We want to be heard. We want to be seen. We want to feel a part of it. We want to laugh. We want to connect. We don't want to be spoken to. So if humor does that, you teach humor. How long do you think it takes for like a so funny person to get pretty funny? Like, can you even measure something like that? Or is it the effort that the person puts in to find the funny in the everyday?
Yeah, I think that's the key right there. The last thing you said, find the funny in the everyday. I think if speakers have to, if they think they need to be funny, that's a lot of pressure. I think they just need to be able to, today with AI, there's so many different ways to be funny. I had a speech a couple weeks ago for a group, a school board leaders, or school, and I did my research, found out, divisiveness among school boards, what the conflict that is created because of the political situation in the United States these days. So there's this tension. So I said, I had a conversation with ChatGPT live in front of the audience, and I said,
Really?
yeah, and I said, hey, that's divisive. I said, what can we do about this? And then the ChatGPT said something like, find the common ground and realize the purpose of why you're there, and some great things. And then I said, so we need to lighten up a little bit. Things are too serious. I said, do it in the spirit of Jerry Seinfeld now. And so it all of a sudden it gave me Jerry Seinfeld, and it was hilarious. So these tools, there's a Suno.com. Shep Hyken introduced me to this, Suno.com. So as a closing speaker, I used to write a lot of song parodies as a closing speaker.
Really?
Summarize the conference in a humorous song. And so now I don't even, I just spoke, Shep and I actually were on a program in Malaysia last week together. And so the promoter, the conference director, a guy by the name of Vig. So if you go into Suno.com, you can put in 200 words and it'll write a song. I mean, a very catchy song.
Wow.
So that's how I ended my program, was a ode to Vig, who's this conference director. And it was hilarious. I mean, and what did all I needed to do was kind of put in what his key characteristics were. And it writes a song. So there's so many tools today where you don't have to be funny. I mean, on one hand, I'm like, gosh, I mean, my ability to write song parodies isn't even that important anymore. But on the other hand, it's like, God, that saves me, 3 hours, 5 hours. I mean, so it's taking advantage of the tools that we have out there today. It's learning a little bit of magic. It's learning it's learning how to just access, be aware of what's happening in the room, tap into the spirit of how people are feeling, just and be willing, vulnerable. I think that there's 3 keys to being a great speaker: vulnerability, authenticity, and humility. So it's the vulnerability and the humility piece of it. The self-effacing, there's nothing funnier than self-effacing humor.
Yeah.
it's bring the humor back on yourself in a program. It's a great way to create connection with your audience. But those three things are going to create the connection to be a great speaker: vulnerability, authenticity, and humility.
So because I'm new in this industry, I see like all of these shiny posters of all the speakers, like transformational keynote, da da da. This word transformational, and I'm like, okay, transformational. If I was such a transformational speaker, I think I could get my boyfriend to pick up his socks. You know what I mean? Like, I have not managed that yet in my own personal life. It's not like I'm going to transform the audience. I'm a therapist. It takes months often for people to like get the light bulb. So for me, it doesn't feel very authentic to call myself transformational. And I don't want to sell that, because it's going to be motivational, but it's not going to be transformational. And you chose to say motivational. Was that like a conscious choice, or how can we authentically, humbly say that we're so great? Or is it the content that's so great and we're just the facilitator of it? How do you deal with that?
One guy said after a speech, "Gosh, I'm so motivated." I thought, "Oh, thank you. Can I use that?" Yeah, I'm a motivational speaker. Motivated one guy. That's a
Okay.
There you have it.
There you
No, I mean, transformational is a big word. Motivational is a little bit softer, and you can figure out a way to call yourself a motivational speaker, and hopefully give enough tools and move people, inspire people enough to where you can claim that. Yeah, I would stay away from a big word like transformational. Or, well, unless you can use it, but no money back guarantee.
Totally. That would be hilarious underneath that.
Yeah, no.
Totally. But don't quote me on that. Yeah, I don't know what kind of people are in the audience. I like that you said humility, because I feel self-deprecating humor is humility. But when you're competing with, really, in my world, like, men can't get that shiny, but like my competition are like women dressed in like beautiful shiny things on like swings in Thailand, talking about like their perfect lives and how they can transform you into like a new woman. And I'm like, really? I'm like 20 kilos overweight. I got a problem with cookies. And right, like, I don't have that life, but I have humor, and I know how I have something, but it's not like that shininess that I want to sell. So
yeah, I think, having seen you speak, your authenticity is, you are who you are on stage, which is great. It's very refreshing. It's very warm. It's very relatable to the audience. And I think you're willing to be vulnerable. You're willing to take the risks that many speakers aren't willing to take. And you don't, you're not invested that you have to come out looking like a star every time. You're willing to, throw it against the wall, and some of it's going to work, some of it's not going to work. So I think what you demonstrate on stage is really those three principles, which makes you successful and will make you more successful if you continue to live those principles.
I just want to end on that, because I'm writing that down and I'm putting it on my wall of motivation from Scott Friedman. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This was super valuable to me as I look up to you, not just because you're so tall and handsome and doing Together We Can Change the World. And that is, I've been thinking, great, you can speak well. Like, anyone who wins a Toastmasters conference can speak well, but why are you speaking? And it's like, you're doing that. Like, we're speaking, and we're speaking to give to women and girls that have less of a voice. You know what I mean? It's like, great, you're good at this, but what the hell are you doing with it in your lifetime? So I think that's what a real transformational speaker is. They speak to transform something else bigger than themselves. So
I can move from like transformational humorist.
Oh, you could be transformational.
Hello. I wonder if that's taken. Transformationalhumorist.com.
Yeah, a humorist that transforms audience. Well, humorist yeah. Well, without a doubt, Together We Can Change the World has transformed lives. So whether or not your speaking has done so, your actions in your life have done so. So
that's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I'm willing.
What are you talking about?
No, it's stretched to transformational humorist. The term.
Dana now, right? give a girl hope and opportunity, and you will be amazed at all that she can be. Right? One of my
Every
favorite quotes.
awesome woman was once a little girl with the power to change her world.
Shout out to Jenna and you guys for the good work you've done in our speaking industry. Thank you for taking the time to motivate me and the rest.
Well, thanks
Nigel
for
says,
asking.
brilliant. Lenny, my mentor, is really enjoying it. And
Hey,
so,
Lenny.
yeah, Lenny, I'm going to interview Lenny and Nigel next week. I'm kind of on like a rampage of getting all the wisdom from the
Great.
funny legends.
Oh, well, I'm in good company for sure.
Yeah, I will be laughing.
All right.
Okay, have fun in
All right.
Vietnam. Bye.
Thanks. All
Good
right,
night.
bye.
Bye.